Good morning, everybody. My name is Marie Meechan from the University of Edinburgh. My PhD title is Navigating Unexplained Infertility. It's a critical autoethnography of loss and hope. I'm asking, what is the experience of unexplained infertility? And how can counselling and psychotherapy assist in the processes of unexplained infertility and infertility? An early vignette from my re-remembered, rewritten journals. I remember being diagnosed with unexplained infertility, unable to find a way forward and no way back to where I started. I live a double life. On the outside, I put on a facade of normality. My job is my protection from the effects of fully living in the world. Work is all I have that moves forward. Everything else but me moves forward. I remember the monumental moment when my ex-husband and I agreed to start trying for a baby, a moment I had dreamed of and planned for since childhood. I remember 36 pregnancy tests later, my excitement has slowly morphed into hard work. From the hope of each new monthly cycle, then feeling hopeless at the sight of each negative pregnancy test. We seek assurance, see our GP, arrange all the tests, when the doctor told us, everything is in good working order, nothing wrong with either of you. I felt relieved. I remember he then added, however, because you failed to conceive within 24 months, you're being diagnosed with unexplained infertility. What? Wait, what is that? Which is also great, he said, because you qualify to go straight onto the IVF waiting list. This can take up to around a year, but with this diagnosis and the pressure taken off, many couples conceive while waiting on the list. It happens a lot, he said. The doctor and my ex-husband continue a light-hearted conversation about how wonderful all of this is. I hear the laughter between these two men growing louder as my inner voice gets very loud. Unexplained infertility. Hold on. What is that? I've never heard of it. What did you say it means again? Or did you say what it means? Am I being diagnosed with nothing? Unexplained? Failure to conceive? Failure. Is this my fault? Our fault? Have we done something wrong? I want to ask these questions, but I seem to have lost my voice. I remember crying, but I was unable to speak. The questions circling my mind. Please, one of you, throw me a lifeline. The clock is ticking. Time is running out. I'm not getting this. Is a medical diagnosis not something objective, a disease, an illness? Let's find something to fix, then perhaps we can call it a diagnosis. The anti-diagnosis you've given just merely confirms that medically nothing is amiss. Nothing medically knowable or measurable was found. Therefore, why not just stay with the not knowing and at least tell us we haven't a clue why you're not conceiving as a couple? You've just given us the haven't a clue diagnosis. Please don't leave me hanging like this, my inner voice says. Meanwhile, in the room, the laughter is still loud. Oh yes, the inappropriateness about my ex-husband's sperm seems to be more important and something to laugh about. In my head, the word failure is still screaming. I am frozen in an endless moment, drowning in a sea of unanswered questions, feeling like a failure at what seems natural, what I should do naturally. The beauty of motherhood feels even more out of reach. I remember not remembering anyone ever mentioning fertility issues in all that I've been taught. How did this get overlooked? It now seems so important. It was not meant to be like this. It feels like a conspiracy. My lifelong dream stolen. I am but invisible. The clock is ticking. And I have lost my voice. 10-minute appointment, over. My project explores a re-remembering of my narratives from my journaled experiences of not being able to conceive and have a baby, spanning 12 years, both as a personal issue within my cultural and religious, societal environment, as well as an insider of the unexplained infertility medical diagnosis. Also as a psychotherapist specialising in the broader topic of infertility, and with their permission, I also explore some of my clients' experiences of UI, illustrating how, at a point in our UI journeys, amidst complex loss and invisible loss, we let go of hope and then arrive at a moment when we feel brave enough to rebuild it again. My work aims to show how deeply it impacts each of us when everything falls apart on our unexplained infertility journeys. And as patients of reproductive medicine, we become objects of assisted reproductive technologies, commodities in the infertility industry. We become accustomed to it, cycle after cycle, loss after loss. We try to protect our hearts throughout the medical cycles and beyond. The purpose of my thesis is not only to show and tell the faces and forms of unexplained infertility beyond my re-remembered journals, but to explore the themes that I believe connect them: shame, stigma, identity issues, and disenfranchised grief. Added to that, I demonstrate some of the language of unexplained infertility and infertility counselling introduced by Linda Hammer-Burns and Sharon Covington, Darcy Harris, such as ambiguous loss, non-finite loss, and deep sorrow. I consider UI and infertility as the intermediate state between treatments, medical treatments, neither pregnant nor non-pregnant, infertile, nor fertile. It is unpredictable in nature. This label can be confusing, even frightening. It impacts a person's identity and can lead to stigma and isolation. I find the term inaccurate and unnecessarily stigmatizing. That's why I prefer to use fertility impairment in my private practice. And I believe this condition is temporary and fluid, with a space outside of it for transition. The emotional repercussions of infertility and UI can be everlasting after the roller coaster experience has ended, even after childbirth. As one of my clients said recently, it never leaves you. Therefore, I believe the role of experienced infertility counsellors in bridging the gap between experiencing UI, infertility, and the medical model is vital. Thus, I call for a shift towards better training and practices within reproductive healthcare, where trained counsellors not only offer emotional support, but also assist with knowledge, validation, and management of UI and infertility, particularly around the prolonged and complex losses involved. In my contribution to this field, I aim to improve the experience for others and offer my fertility impairment training program for professionals specialising in infertility and UI. I hope to build on the invaluable work of esteemed mentors Burns and Covington, which has significantly improved my practice. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Lee. My presentation, I struggle with multiple words. Okay. I am Fiona Murray, and I am also, like Marie, from University of Edinburgh. Okay. In The Promise of Beauty, Meechan Nguyen brings us to Ocean Vuong's declaration on how valuable beauty is for a world on fire, a fire that is political, relational, spiritual, and literal. Recently, I moved to a wooden house in a forest in the north of Scotland where fires have raged close enough for us to receive alerts to keep windows and doors closed against smoke. I am comforted by the presence of my neighbours. I live between an artist, Randy, and a writer, Philip, between canvas and page, paint and paragraph. This morning, I lean against the old catapult-shaped pine tree that stands between my house and Philip's, the writer's. I'm not sure if the pine tree sits in Philip's garden or mine, but I suspect neither of us care. It might feel awkward, though, if Philip saw me sitting here with two of his books in hand. One of his books, a little older, steeped in Celtic wisdom. The other is hot off the press, turned to the impulse of today. I soften a little in the knowledge that he is away, guiding one of his Celtic pilgrimage weeks on the island of Iona. I am reading his books because he's my neighbour, but I find them fascinating, and I fear their irrelevance in the academic fields I navigate, and writing them into this paper. The question that underlines my fear is, are they too spiritual? A pine cone falls from the tree too close to my head for my liking, but it creates enough of a pause that I hear Erin Manning's voice reminding me never to be afraid of being irrelevant. And anyway, I recognise the colonial values steeped in this question. I therefore continue to read, wondering if Philip might be one of the last living bards of Celtic wisdom. In it, he writes of how the colonial project of Christianity displaced the Celts, among many, many others, and with them, the worship of the land's presence. Transcendence took over. To write the earth back, he says, is to write immanence home. He writes there were no carved anthropomorphic images of Bridget because she was found in the streams and the mountains, not the heavens. Though this was many moons ago, Philip writes in his new book to what he calls the impulse of today. He speaks of a desire to ground spiritual wisdom in lived experience rather than statements of belief. I believe this shift too, to turn not to inherited ideologies, but to the living world and the body's knowing. It's the conviction, he writes, that the divine shines in the body of the earth, in one another, and deep within us all. But the beauty of this book is not just the thought, it's the writing itself. It's almost as though I can hear the ancient scribes writing from feathers dipped in Celtic liquid wisdom. In the days of the Celts, writers were called Fila, the seers. For the seers, writing was received through solitude in nature, through trance and dream. The writing was ecstatic dance, written blindfolded, driven by the wild, the erotic, the divine. Writing was ceremony. In autoethnography, vulnerability is often framed as exposure, a laying bare, but perhaps the vulnerability that follows Philip's impulse might be to write with the pulse of the sacred, to share those moments of knowing that might render us mad if spoken aloud, especially in a world where sacred knowing is weaponized. What if we wrote about the grief that struck our chest hours before news of a loss arrived, or the way the light through the kitchen window told us without words that we were not alone? This paper calls us to write like the Shella, the galaxier of two worlds, to write from our thin places. Here, beauty calls for what John O'Donoghue describes as the beautifying of the eye. Beauty is perceptual. It's the sacred seen through the eyes, softened by sadness, stretched by love, and schooled by mystery. When you take the time to write with reverence, O'Donoghue writes, a richer life unfolds before you. Moments of beauty begin to braid your days. A gentle breeze, carrying the echo of burning embers, turns her back on the fire, reminding me to go inside and close the door. A few days later, I'm sitting in Randy's kitchen, the artist's. We speak of the fact that the world is on fire. He tells me that as a boy amidst a chaotic home, he would sit in the New York Met and be soothed by the beauty around him. For him, beauty was love in form. His life's purpose has been the pursuit of what he calls the aesthetic orgasm, the pleasure of beauty as the experience of love. He tells me of his great love for Vermeer and his burning desire to create a Vermeer of our time. He started a series of portraits from his great-grandmother to his daughter in the hope of finding through them the beauty of Vermeer's girl with a pearl earring. I'm no art critic, but I can't see it. It isn't that the portraits lack beauty, so to speak. The portraits remind me of the ancient tradition of Anam Cara, the soul friend. In the Celtic world, this was the one who saw you as you are, beneath all masks. It's the relationship between those that can really see each other. His work holds that kind of gaze. If there is beauty, then it is in the presence of Anam Cara, but they are not painted closely enough to the girl with the pearl earring for me to notice a likeness. The problem is, he tells me, I don't think I ever achieved my goal. I mean, I knew I couldn't paint like Vermeer, but it wasn't my skill that got in the way. He picks up my empty cups and takes it back to the sink. My family were troubled. I don't think I could bypass that trouble in the way I looked at them. I could always see their traumas. His words summon an image I have of my great-grandmother, Roisin Neowen. The image is frustratingly hard to see clearly, but I have come to think of her as the holder of our family's intergenerational trauma. Violence that has led to Roisin midwifing births too soon after hospicing deaths. She has become the angel of my memory, the one I keep on my desk, reminding me that our autoethnographies, even when our memories fail in accuracy, are 7 layers deeper than truth. Roisin is what pulls me back to beauty. She whispers in my ear, "What does it do for you? Listen." Beauty, I am learning, helps us survive and is found in the ways in which we manage that. It's when those ways assert a logic that the world has never seen before. It is in the care of beauty that beauty becomes care. Yes, Roisin whispers, and that is why she ushers me towards Sadie Hartman's Wayward Lives, Beautiful Experiments as Theory, that can meet beauty where it lives, in survival. She tells me that beauty cannot be written without her. Hartman writes beauty into the archive of the wayward, tracing the lives of young Black women whose gestures, longings, and resistances become beautiful experiments in living otherwise. She finds an unfinished revolution. Roisin also points me to Cassina Sharp's Ordinary Notes. If wayward lives recover the beauty of insurgent desire, then ordinary notes tend to beauty as trace, as method, as something that remains even when nothing is resolved. It is remembrance of what is seen and what has been stolen and breaks the silence around its taking. I call on the ancient scribes, the Fila, the seers, and the Shellac, and ask how best I might carry the fire and wisdom of these authors, whose beauty would not ignore within this paper. They do not answer quickly. Not yet. More time is needed. In the silence, I'm reminded that reverence is a way of knowing, that Hartman and Sharp hold beauty not as escape, but as a door into care, into memory and love. That silence too, the kind I can hear while waiting for a response, can be its own kind of beauty. And perhaps this is the answer I'm being brought, that the way forward in this paper is not direct citation or an integration before there is anima cara, a soul friendship, a deeper knowing must be felt. A relationship rooted in mutual recognition, reverence, and truth. The method of beauty, a way of being with theory, story, and memory, where to walk beside is to be changed. I'm urged to develop this first. So I return again to the space between Philip's writing and Randy's lines, between Fila and anima cara, seer and soul friend, between the artist's house and the writer's house, and the pine tree that does not care whose garden it grows in. This is where I live now, between fire and beauty. The paper does not close, but softens and opens the eye that has been beautified, not to fix what's broken, but to love what's still here, to let beauty hold what words can't, to find, even in the smoke and silence, a thread of re-enchantment, and to stay close to it, gently, quietly, still, in one slow breath.
Hello, everybody. My name is Elif Zapsu, and I am contributing from Istanbul, Turkey. And I'd like to present to you my PhD thesis results titled "The Lover Exploring Sufi Thoughts of Love and Death in Psychotherapy." So Sufism, for those who don't know, I have to quickly summarize, is Islamic mysticism. So you might know it in popular culture as like the whirling dervishes or the wandering mystics or the love poetry of Rumi, who's actually a Sufi poet, but people don't know that. And alongside the general mysticism, you can have Jewish mystics, Christian mystics, many different types of mystics, but all mystics have the same core message, which is non-duality, which is the oneness of existence. So everything is one infinite unit with endless diverse combinations and expressions of that one. So when you hear the word mystic, you can automatically generally assume non-dualism. In terms of Islamic mysticism, we say there is no God, there's only Allah, meaning non-dualism, one infinite beings expressed in infinite combinations, whether it's the trees, the animals, the ocean, the feeling of the breeze or the stars or the whole universe. It is all expressions of you that you experience within you. So my thesis, I actually did it with my supervisors, Fiona, who's here. Hi, Fiona. And Jonathan Wyatt, who I have infinite love and gratitude for because they allowed me a breathing space. They gave me a space to be me and to discover who I am. In psychotherapy, I learned from my most valuable teachers that the approach is not just a philosophy, it is a way of being. And so I had to figure out my own way of being. And so I explored love and death and Sufism. It took me 2 years to present my results. I finished this 2 years ago because I had long COVID in which I had a real battle with life and death. And so during this experience of the spiritual desire to let go of this ego self that created a separation between me, myself, and myself, so you, me, and all of you. I also dealt with not only a psychological death of the self, but also the threat of the physical death of the self. My thesis became both internal and external, very, very real. But with each hardship, there is great ease. With this hardship, I had to truly live every single day as my last, and this actually made my spiritual endeavor, my lived experience, my thesis, all that more profound. I wanted to get rid of this body and all the labels it contains. I wanted to be free of this ego concept of the self so that I could be me and I could be my true essential self. And having to face death every day physically kind of made this process all that much easier. So let me give you an example. If it's difficult for you to leave your house, one possession, if you're dying today, is it going to be as difficult? Probably not. So this is a very, very basic example. In any case, I decided to go about writing this thesis using 2 tools. I had to discover what love and death was because when I started this journey, it was during my training, and I had no idea what is love. I kept asking my classmates, what is love? What is love? What is love? What am I? What am I? What am I? And so I had to find a source that I trusted. I found a Sufi scholar. I had met him and I read his profound work, which is based on his experience, his way of being. And it was incredible. He had found such a love that it triggered such a death that he had annihilated his self-concept to the extent where he felt the entire universe was expressions of him. That is the state of nothing and everything. And so I used writing and inquiry to find out what he experienced love and death was, and then integrate it into lived experience through autoethnographic research, which I used fiction-based autoethnography. Why did I use fiction? I used fiction because for several reasons. One, for ethical reasons to protect myself and my participants. Another, to explain the inexplicable, to explain the magical as the real. Another, because often what is normal for me in my culture and my religion is abnormal for the West. I would be labeled absolutely insane, right? Another, because in Sufi tradition, in the mystic tradition, they always used autobiographies, fictionalized autoethnographic research. They did their lived research of finding their spiritual actualization journey, and they wrote about it so that they can learn and others could learn through fiction. The reasons they did this is to explain the abnormal as a possible normal, and also to protect themselves. They were often killed, right? During those times, they were killed for being heretics because they were saying there is no God, there is only Allah. Allah being one infinite source of divine love and unity that creates infinite expressions of itself. And so in the interest of time, I wanted to read a poem by Ahmed Hulusi, the scholar whose work I try to integrate and who I fell in love with, and who I tried to understand what this universal love and nothingness meant in his words. And so I'd like to read you his poem because I believe he explains the thesis much better than I can. For love. The lover knows only the beloved. He has died to himself and become one with the beloved. The lover sees only the beloved, upon every face his eyes gaze. And in every sound he hears, the voice of the beloved pulsates. Love is the land of unity. Love is the land of nothingness, a nothingness in which you become not, and in which you become all. When you're inflamed by the fire of love, there's no going back. The lover accepts to fall apart, to become isolated and humiliated, to lose everything he owns, to lose his sense of identity. For in love, there is no other, there is no me. Love is to become non-existent, and this non-existent reigns supreme over all existence. Lovers are those who, like moths, throw themselves into the flames of love, annihilate themselves in the one, and thus become everlasting. Allah has chosen the lovers for himself, for love is the name of Allah. To love and for love we came to this world. Our purpose is love, is to love the lover. Each part of our being proclaims Allah, Allah. What of those who see another? The earth and the heavens call out Allah. Forgo yourself to befriend Allah. What worth has the world? Have for one who finds love? At every instant, the call is for Allah, Allah, Allah. And so I fell in love with the author. And I cannot say that I have and perhaps ever will understand and reach that level of enlightenment. But what I can tell you is that over time, my night dreams, where I saw everyone as my reflection, became my daydreams. I started to see more and more everyone like my reflection. The barrier began to crumble. The more I loved, the more that idea of that I am this body, female, woman, doctor, teacher, whatever, it began to crumble and crumble and crumble. It is like looking at the mirror that was covered in dirt, and the more I loved, the clearer the mirror got, until finally, now it's still blurry, but I can more clearly see you, the more clearly see me in you, the more I can love you. I love you.
We still have 20 minutes for
Hi, it's Marie again. This is a comment really a comment for Elif. I was absolutely blown away by your presentation, Elif. That just really moved me. And I was also blown away when you said Ahmed Halusi, because believe it or not, I've started reading him too. My husband is Turkish. That's husband number 2, everyone. So,
Fabulous.
yeah, and he's big into Sufism, and he has all of Ahmed Halusi's books, and he got them all for me in English because I'm fascinated by this whole, Sufism. It's utterly beautiful. And your presentation was beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Can I have your name?
Yeah, it's Marie Meechan from the University of Edinburgh.
Meechan. Okay. Thank you so
We
much.
could talk more.
Yeah, I hope so, if it is of interest to you.
Thank you so much,
You're
Elif.
welcome in Istanbul.
Say hello to my beloved Istanbul. I lived there for 3 years too.
I will do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I know we're just getting station, sorry.
yeah. Yeah. Gail, would you like to come in?
Yeah, thank you. That was a beautiful set of presentations. So thank you, everyone. I enjoyed them all very much. I have a comment for Marie. Thanks, Marie. It was a really lovely presentation. I really liked your term fertility impairment. I just wanted to say, in my work in this area, I talk about reproductive loss and reproductive disruption. So I talk about disruption in the way that you talk about impairment. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And you might already know, so please forgive me if I'm teaching you to suck eggs, but I wondered if you might be interested in a couple of resources, World Childless Week and Storyhouse Childless. World Childless Week is an online event during September. It goes all year, but mostly in September. And I'm just thinking that actually that might be a really nice space for your work, because they're looking for stories and accounts from people all the time. And it's easy to find. And also Storyhouse Childless takes place face to face in Chester in September. So they're just a couple of things that I think, places where I think you might like to display your work. It was really nice. Thank you.
Gail, thank you so much. And I really, I've read some of your work, and I listened to you yesterday and just made some notes from what you said yesterday too. So thank you for those additional, you know, I've noted both of them, and thank you so much. Thanks for what you've done too, Gail. I really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you, Marie. Thank you.
Thank you so
And
much.
yeah, if you want to talk, please just send me an email. Great work.
Oh, that'd be lovely.
Thank you.
Yeah, I will. Thank you. I know. Sorry, I'm dominating.
Hi, Annalise. Is she about? Hi, Annalise, it's Jen here. So I really liked your presentation. I wanted to introduce myself because I'm also using autoethnography, and I think it would probably be good to chat because there's a few key concepts in our research that are very similar, including like how you describe the perception of gender in autistic people. It's something I'm looking at as well. I wondered if you'd thought about, because obviously you looked at the social or societal and medical definitions of how behavior is interpreted. I wondered, let me just get my thoughts, sorry. What I was trying to get at was, obviously you talked about diagnostic gaps, but actually one thing that I didn't see in your study was the impact of hormonal and menstrual changes in the body of I'm just going to say autistic women, because I know that there's a lot of ambiguity at the moment in the UK. But what I'm looking at is that when you are a person who menstruates and you are neurodivergent, as I am as well, there's actually a huge amount of overlap with mental health triggers as well. So for things like premenstrual exacerbation and PMDD, as they're known clinically, but those are linked in with kind of gender expectations as well. You know, many people get told it's just your hormones, or they get misdiagnosed with things like personality disorder. And I wondered if you thought about that. Sorry for the length of my ramble. So yeah, it was a bit of
a ramble, Jen. It's very interesting. I had considered that. My thesis at the moment is very wide-reaching when you're covering 4 out of the 5 major neurodivergent conditions and how they interrelate. So I've chosen to keep it slightly smaller, but it is something that I would reference during my thesis about the areas that still need exploration. And so I'm honing down what I look at the same time as flagging up other areas that are under-researched and under-thought of. It can get quite overwhelming, if I'm totally honest with you, but I would love to connect with you outside of this. So if I could get your email address, that would be great. Thank you.
She said, "Will do."
Excellent.
That's why I kind of got the microphone. I was leaving it in case you did a Marie and did that. Okay, okay. Bethan, yeah. Oh, so she does. Bethan, would you like?
Hi, thank you. I came from an earlier session before the coffee break and I felt absolutely full to the brim. And I was thinking, how can we carry on and receive more information, bodied information this morning? And then I land in this session and wow, just remarkable work, all four of you, just wonderful. Feel quite moved. Annalise, I've made a point. I've listed a name of people whose work who I'm gonna refer your work to, and the neuroquirky. I think that's gonna go viral. I love that. And then Fiona, so lovely to hear you meld Christianity and Celtic lore from the Isle of Anglesey and Ismorn here. And what I wrote actually was, they're not mutually exclusive. I wrote in my little notebook that Christianity and Celtic understanding are embracing each other here on this island, as on the Llŷn Peninsula. And I know Kevin Ellis, who's presenting later, will attest to that. And I just wondered, I mean, one link is the Northumberland community up in the northeast of the UK. And I wondered whether you were familiar with R.S. Thomas's poetry. A wonderful Welsh poet who wrote in English. And he was a vicar, but a bit uncomfortable with his collar, his dog collar. And he wrote of the land and how the bread and the wine was the fields and the birds. And I think you might enjoy his work. So thank you all four. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Just to pick up on that, I was in the earlier session and the musicality that's following the narrative today is extraordinary. I was talking about, I'm a researcher interested in non-self, and not as an absence, emptiness or nothingness or void, but a sense of pratyat samutpada in Buddhist terms, which is interdependence, in which the self disappears. And as a dyslexia practitioner for many, many years, helping people articulate their creative practices in language, the gifts of dyslexia and the gifts of neurodivergence, if you like, all the presentations resonated with me in this session and reminded me of Jacob Collier, that young, talented musician, and what he calls his creative infinity syndrome, the boundlessness of what he sees as his exploration of musical ideas. And I felt that generosity of creativity in this panel that was really beautiful and very abundant. Thank you.